In my first-year curriculum for all college students, I'm proposing a series of classes that will help each student pick a major. I believe that a lot of thought and energy should go into picking your major because it has real-world consequences on your future job opportunities. I also believe that there are different levels of risk tied to majors, which isn't always clear to students. I'll talk more about these risks in the next video. But for this video, I want to explain how colleges can support students in their choice of major through two specific ways: classes and data. Before we talk about how colleges can support major selection, we need to understand how majors impact employment outcomes for students. You can think of a major as a college certifying that a student has received the basic education and training for a specific subject matter area. Employers tie majors to job openings by making certain majors a requirement for specific jobs. For example, a company that wants to hire someone to perform entry-level accounting tasks will want that person to have already received basic education in accounting. The company ensures this by requiring an accounting degree as a minimum qualification in the description for the open job. If an applicant didn't major in accounting, then the applicant won't get an interview for the job opening and thus no job. So students should really think of majors as entry-level job requirements as determined by employers. Two other important notes here. First, selecting a major by definition will limit some of your future job opportunities, since different jobs will require different majors. Following on that idea, selecting a major will also impact your future earnings in some way, because different jobs pay different amounts. Now let's get back to how colleges should help you select a major, starting with classes. I think the most important factor influencing what a student's major should be is job fit, also known as job aptitude. This basically means that students should major in an area where they have some combination of talent, interest, and skills. Put another way, I think students should focus on majoring in areas that match their strengths. I believe this because if you end up majoring in something that's not a good fit for you, then I think several bad things could happen. First, it might be harder to get a job because you'll struggle during interviews. Second, even if you get the job, you might perform poorly because the job doesn't fit your strengths. And third, even if you were able to stay in the job, you might be miserable having to overcome the poor fit. One of the best ways to determine a student's job fit is through assessments, which is the first class I want students to take. Subsequent classes will help tie assessment results to specific jobs and then work backwards from these jobs to the majors that are required. I detailed my ideas for these classes in earlier videos, so you can check those out. Colleges must also provide detailed, transparent employment data to help students make decisions about majors. But before I dive into the data, I want to make something clear. I don't think the primary driver of choosing a major should be earning potential. To reinforce what I said earlier, I think the biggest determinant for your major should be fit. But obviously money matters and can impact your decision process. For example, if the best job fit for you is teacher and that's what you want to do, I don't think you should look at teacher salaries and then decide, well, they don't make enough money, so I won't major in education. My advice would be different here. You should just figure out the least expensive way to become a teacher. That could be majoring in education at this college, some other college, or even finding another path entirely, as long as you keep your costs as low as possible. Back to employment statistics. I want all colleges to clearly publish employment statistics by major on their websites, and then present this information to students in person during the major exploration class in the second trimester. One important note. Most colleges already report employment data in a couple of places, such as first destination surveys and the Department of Education College Scorecard. But even though this data exists, I've got some issues with it and with how it's presented. First, as already mentioned, I want the employment data for each major summarized and explained to students by the college in a class before they pick their majors. Second, there should be higher response rates for the surveys that provide the employment data. For example, the First Destination survey currently aims for a 65% survey response rate. That's simply not high enough. Colleges must ensure that they capture at least 80% of graduates' employment data, or ideally, even higher than that. And third, I think some of the employment data that's reported is either unnecessary or misleading. At a fundamental level, here is the most important data that I would want to review before selecting a major. 1. Does the college have employment data for at least 80% of students who recently graduated with this major? 2. At graduation, what percentage of students in this major had secured a full-time job? 3. At graduation, what percentage of students in this major had not secured a full-time job? 4. Of the students in this major who have secured a full-time job at graduation, what percentage of these jobs required a college degree? 5. Of the students in this major who have secured a full-time job at graduation, what percentage of these jobs either required or preferred this particular major? And 6. Of the students who have secured full-time employment at graduation, what's the average compensation, median compensation, 25th percentile compensation, and 75th percentile compensation? I would then repeat this data for a second time frame, which would be either 6 months or 9 months after graduation. Schools can provide more employment data or more detailed data than what I just suggested, but that data should be secondary. For example, colleges can provide information on part-time employment or on continuing education, but in general, I think that data isn't as important as full-time employment data. One example of this, I think continuing education only matters when it's a requirement for a specific career path. For example, someone with a biochem major might have picked that major to continue on to med school. Okay, that makes sense, and I wouldn't consider med school to be a bad post-graduation outcome. But what about someone with an undergrad business major who chooses to continue on to get an MBA right after they graduate? I'd argue that's actually a bad post-graduation outcome, since the undergrad degree should have yielded full-time employment, and the graduate degree, in this case an MBA, isn't that different from the undergrad degree. One final note to end on. There is some other information about majors that I want colleges to share with students. I think colleges should help students understand if a major is a terminal degree for a certain job, or if the major is typically just a stepping stone to even more education. This information will help students better understand the total cost of their educational choices. I also want colleges to help students understand the flexibility of majors, which I'll talk about in the next video.